Now that we're thinking about complex matrices whose entries can have real and imaginary parts, one thing we may occasionally have reason to do is to split a matrix into its real and imaginary parts. Let's do two quick examples where we have a matrix and we'll find the real part of the matrix and the imaginary part. These things are defined exactly as you would expect. The real part of A is the matrix just like A, except without all of the imaginary stuff. And the imaginary part of A is the matrix just like A, except without all the real stuff. So the real part of A is this 2x2 matrix whose entries are the real parts of the corresponding entries of A. This first entry is 3 plus I. Its real part is 3, and so that's the entry in the real part of A. This entry is negative I. It has no real part, so the corresponding entry in the real part of A is 0. And the imaginary part of A works similarly. This entry is 5. It has no imaginary part, so the corresponding entry in the imaginary part of A is 0. This entry is 4 minus 3i. Its imaginary part is negative 3, so the corresponding entry in its imaginary part is negative 3. Note that both the real part of A and the imaginary part of A are real matrices. The imaginary unit is not brought into the imaginary part of A, just the coefficients of the imaginary unit. And of course, we could split A up into its real and imaginary parts like this. A equals its real part plus its imaginary part, of course, times I. Let's look at the second example. Here is our 3x3 matrix A, and here are its real and imaginary parts. For example, this entry is 6i. It has no real part, and so the corresponding entry in the real part of A is 0. This entry is 9 plus 2i. Its imaginary part is 2, and so the corresponding entry in the imaginary part of A is positive 2. Again, neither one of these entries has the imaginary unit. They're both real matrices. This is just representing the real part, and this is representing the coefficients of I. Again, this allows us to write the matrix A in this form, its real part plus the imaginary unit times its imaginary part. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and be sure to check out my linear algebra course and linear algebra exercises playlists in the description for more. Thanks for watching.
Stressed out, sweetie, I'm stressed out. Sounds like you've been stressed out. Tell me what you're stressed about. Stressed out, honey, I've been stressed out lately. Don't know what's what, don't know what I'm stressed about. Stressed out, sweetie, I'm stressed out. Sounds like you've been stressed out. Tell me what you're stressed about.